Welcome back to another episode of RPG Archive, the show where we look at RPGs of the past, play them, talk about them, and then shove them in the archive. And today we're wrapping up quite the trilogy, Dragon Quest III.
Woohoo! For the legacy. This is where the story begins and ends.
And of course, I wouldn't do it with anybody else except for Teddy.
Hey, Spencer. Thanks for having me. I'm thrilled to be here and also conclude this epic saga in the Dragon Quest lineage.
Yep. We did 1, we did 2, and now we're wrapping it up with 3. And then who knows where we'll go from here. I'm sure we'll figure that out. Wonder if numbers go higher than 3. Of course, you're from Majority. So check out that YouTube channel. And then, of course, we do the button mappers together with Alex. So go check out that show as well. Links will be below. I've probably forgotten to put links below before. I'm really going to make an honest effort to put them in there.
You can also Google it.
Also use Google. We talked about Dragon Quest 3 before, or 2 before, I'm sorry. Yeah. This is going to be quite the step up, Dragon Quest 3.
I know you're ready to do the comparisons.
Yeah. They will come shortly, I'm sure. But before we do that, let's talk about the making of Dragon Quest 3. One of our first links is going to be from Shmuplations, which does a really good interview with Yuji Horii for Dragon Quest 2. This time they did one for Dragon Quest 3. So Dragon Quest 3 is actually one of the first games. Well, it's definitely, I'm not going to say that, but I'll say it's the first game in the series with a battery in Japan. So this is
so the other ones worked with password system.
Right. Yeah, you could sort of see it.
On the NES, this one had a battery, so you could do the built-in saves.
Yeah. Which the complexity certainly calls for it. This one, I don't think would be possible unless the password was like 8,000 characters long or something.
Metroid was bad enough.
Yeah. Also, he talks a little bit about intelligent quests and monsters. Let me pull that part up. So this one's actually with Nakamura, who is, I believe, the designer, and Horii. And he says there are dumb monsters and there are intelligent monsters. Horii says, for example, with monsters that can use magic, the dumb ones will keep trying to cast the same spell even after their MP is gone. But smart ones will try something else. Take a monster who can cast Revive or Vivify. The spells can revive fallen comrades. If he's a smart monster, after he's used up all his magic points, he'll try and cast Rob Magic, steal some MP, and revive another monster. So, it's pretty impressive.
Did you ever notice, like, when you go into a battle with, like, a mimic and then it casts a spell and it immediately does not have enough magic power for the spell that it knows?
You know what? I don't know if I noticed that, but that's hilarious that you would try to cast this and without ever having used mana at all before.
It's bizarre. Why have it as a spell if it doesn't have enough MP for it? It's not the only monster that's that has that issue, but it's kind of a quirk.
Yeah, I wonder if there's a scaling thing, and it somehow was like scaled to have that, but you got like the lowest level monster that couldn't have enough mana for it. I don't know. That's a weird situation.
Mm-hmm. Another thing is when they cast these kind of like one-hit kill moves, I think it does level matching. So if your level's higher than the monster, those kind of spells don't work. But it'll say something like, "But the spell failed," or "There's not enough magic power."
Yeah. Okay. Well, he also talked a little bit, and this was recent, and I just wanted to get this in there, and then, eventually we'll move away totally. But he did talk briefly about a remake. Let me talk about this a little bit. There's been plenty of talk about the Final Fantasy VII remake, but are there any plans for an HD remake of Dragon Quest or Dragon Quest II? I hope it is being considered. That was what the guy asked him. This is on Silicon Era. Yu Miyake, series executive producer, said, I want to do it. After making Dragon Quest XI, I learned that it can be pretty tough to make a full HD game. It's kind of a weird thing to say. Maybe that's a language thing. Where to concentrate our resources and such. We talked about a Dragon Quest III remake about 4 to 5 years ago. But if anything, we should probably make Dragon Quest XII instead. And he laughs. There are also other series, and we have a new development line, so perhaps when the timing is right. For now, we don't have any plans for a Dragon Quest III remake, but there's still room for consideration.
There's a ton of versions of this game, a surprising amount.
Yeah.
There's, of course, the original NES cartridge. Then they had the technically Super Nintendo version, which is only in Japan, legitimately. There's the Game Boy Color cartridge. Then there's phone ports. Then there's the port of the phone port to the Switch.
That's true.
And so now there's speculation about a possible remake for either the first two games and or 3. Is that something you're interested in?
I think yes. I am interested in a 1 through... You have to do all 3, though. A 1 through 3 remake. Although, I don't know if I'd put them all in the same game. Maybe still split them up. Because,
you could do like one of those like trilogy packs.
Yeah.
You know, where you can pick from the games.
Exactly. Yeah, something like that. Because I wouldn't want to put them all together because I think 3 loses some of the wow factor if you just kind of put it all in the same thing. And you really couldn't transition from 1 to 2 to 3 very well anyway. I mean, you could get creative and find a way. But I think keeping them separate is the right idea.
Well, technically, that's what they did on the Game Boy Color, too, because they had the Dragon Quest 1 and 2 cartridge, and then they had the Dragon Quest 3 cart.
Mm-hmm.
So they were already thinking in that line. Now, let's talk about this. This is pretty interesting. Dragon Quest 3 is a precursor to the first 2 games, but it's the third game. It's the beginning and the end.
Right.
Do you find it odd, or do you enjoy playing this game after having come fresh off of 1 and 2?
I love it. I love that it... You could almost see it... Well, no. From a timeline perspective, it's not. But from a player's perspective, it's almost cyclical. You play 1 and 2, and you see the progression, not in the actual game, but in the development of the game, it getting better and better. And then 3 is the masterpiece, and then ironically leads you back to thinking about 1 and 2 again, which is fun and different than most RPGs I can think of. How about you?
Yeah, it was weird for me to step back. And also, the connections to the first 2 games aren't super apparent early on. As the game progresses, you see those connections. So by the end, I was like, oh, okay. But early on, I was like, it's a little jarring stepping back in the timeline and seeing, like how this pre-folds everything that comes.
Yeah, I could see modern gamers not being too thrilled, but there are other games that have put themselves as sequels and then turned out to be prequels. Metal Gear Solid is one. That game's kind of a mess anyway, but it's certainly still counts. And I'm sure there's a million others. And I know there's more, but they're not coming to my head right now. But I think it's acceptable. I think what Dragon Quest III delivers is the fact that it's the big twist, that it's the prequel, makes it more unique than those, because those like, it's kind of the selling point is that it's a prequel. This one, you have no idea. It might as well be a different game for 80% of it.
So on that note, would it make sense to play this game either in isolation or prior to 1 and 2?
That is a very good question. It's a catch-22 because 3 is basically 3 is a full-fledged Dragon Quest game for what we know Dragon Quest as. So it ironically makes it difficult to go back to the games it's pointing you to, because they're 1 is about as basic as you can get, and 2 is like, it's like, remember 3? Okay, let's strip away like half of the good points of that, and then you have 2. Um, I don't. I would still keep the order of play the same. And I think it makes 3's wow factor even better once you realize what it is.
Oh yeah, if you can put up with the technical limitations of the first 2 games and even just the gameplay limitations for the genre of the turn-based RPG and what was, readily available at the time, you're in for a treat with 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's great that it wraps itself up in such a nice bow. You almost think it should be the end of the NES thing, but I guess it didn't quite work out that way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it feels like when you say that you beat 1 through 3 and know about it, you're like, oh yeah, I played the NES lineage of Dragon Quest and it was pretty good. You could almost forget that 4 was also tacked on at the end, and I think you and I consider probably better.
Oh yeah,
yeah.
Once you get past this trilogy, the rest of the series is a different ballpark.
Oh yeah, and I think both of us are very, very excited.
Yeah.
Let's talk about some bugs.
I hate bugs.
You don't like bugs?
No, they're icky and gross.
In the original edition, by selecting parry in the combat menu, the damage a character takes in battle is cut in half, even if the player backs out and selects a different command. This bug is mentioned in the official guidebooks, but it is fixed in the remakes. That's pretty slick. If you were yeah,
what's the difference? Parry cuts the attack done to you in half.
Yeah, that's like your defend.
So what's the bug about that?
So the bug is if you choose parry, but then you like go back and say, no, I don't want to parry, I want to do something else, you still get the benefits from parry.
Oh, and that's just in the NES cart, or
it looks like it says it's fixed in the remake. So I guess in both America and Japan, it's in there. So that ironically might be easier.
Yeah,
if you're willing to take the time to parry every time.
It's vastly different than Dragon Quest II, where the final boss had a heal all spell.
You can get a leaf of the world tree by searching in a square near Rimuldar. This square has the same coordinates as the world tree grove in the overworld.
Okay. Interesting.
Under certain circumstances, metal slime monsters will take 10 points of damage instead of 1 or 2. Well, I would like to see those instances.
I will tell you what, though, that bee dragon trick, you got to do speed up with one of your characters and have the sage bee dragon, and it turns into a dragon. And the next attack it does on the second turn, if they haven't run away, is like 92 damage.
Whoa.
They only need like 4 to die.
Yeah.
And if you're coming in them in packs, it attacks the entire thing of monsters out there.
It's like an AoE?
Yeah.
Wow.
Attack all enemies, is that it? No. What is AoE?
Well, that's funny. That's actually also kind of how it is in Dragon Quest, but AoE is more of a phrase that means area of effect.
It's a whole area attack.
Wow. That's pretty good. That's a good tip.
Mm-hmm.
The level requirements for wizards to learn Frostburn and Ice Spears are switched. Whatever. Some stats cycle if they're raised above 255. Oh, this has been fixed in the remakes.
Oh boy, so
go back to
so 1. It would go back to that's rough.
Thank God they fixed that. It is possible to create a party of only deceased characters by exploiting the paralysis status condition. This was first thought to be only possible using the Dream Ruby, but has since been proven possible using paralysis induced by monsters. This glitch allows the manipulation of memory within the game, producing a wide range of effects and possibilities. I don't know. You got to do some digging to understand what that is. I don't understand that.
I guess it just means you can walk around with a party of coffins.
We're kind of sick.
Yeah.
By casting raw magic on monsters that have the bounce effect, the cast gains a lot of MP instead of losing some. Doesn't say it was fixed either, so there you go. There's some remake stuff. I'm not going to get into that. One
of them was really cool though. In Pachisi, which is a like the board game.
Yeah.
That's introduced in the remakes. There are certain squares, when you land on them, it reduces your status points. And if you fight immediately after having less status points, it gives you like a massive XP gain, and you can get to level 99 by doing that.
That is listed here, yes. It says, if the player lands on a space which reduces his or her strength, it is common that the next battle fought will cause the character's experience to skyrocket. Often this leads to the character being level 99 immediately. This is weird. The glitch seems to be intentional, or at least acknowledged by the creators, as if you attempt to save at the king before the next battle. He says you have gained experience in an unusual way, and it will become clear to you in battle.
Oh, that's great. What is that like? That's like that's one of those self-aware things. Or it's like Mr. Rossetti in Animal Crossing or something.
Dude, we came up with that at the exact same time.
There's another one though where he like calls you out on cheating to like get to, not Rossetti, but like it's like a Pokemon Stadium minigame or something. I don't know exactly, but it's like where you cheat to get to the end, and they say no, that doesn't count. I can't put my finger on it though. I don't know what it is.
That's phenomenal.
You know what? You know what the funny thing is though? When I was playing the version I was playing, and that would happen to me in Pachisi, and I would lose my stats, I would immediately go back to the saved game that I had recently had. I would just load wherever I was saved before, because I could not bear to see my character losing like 5 points of strength out of like 40.
Dude, I would do that too. The game is a stat grind.
Uh-huh.
Absolutely. And it just feels wrong to have a character weaker than he's supposed to be, even if you don't even notice. It's just like, it's not right.
Yeah.
Weird sidebar. I was in a D&D party once, and there was a rogue who had like a lot of charisma, and the guy did a thing where if you got hurt a certain amount, you would lose a stat based on a dice roll, and he lost 1 point in charisma, and he cried and stopped playing.
Wow. For life?
For our party. I don't know what he's done with his life. I hope something better.
Wish him all the best.
Yeah. maybe he should stop playing D&D. That's all I'm saying.
Well, hopefully his stat points have come back by now.
All right, let's talk about the release of Dragon Quest III.
Catch and release.
It came out in Japan on the family computer in 1988. It came out in North America in 1992. Both of these were the NES. So 4-year difference.
And by that time, SNES is out now.
Yes.
91 or 92. Genesis is 89.
For reference, in 1998, Final Fantasy II came out December of that year. The actual Final Fantasy II. That seems kind of normal. Dragon Quest III, Final Fantasy II, Dragon Quest was first. Okay.
Yeah. In
America in 1992, Final Fantasy II had released on the SNES that year. And this is Final Fantasy IV.
Yeah.
Which is like a really good game.
Yeah. I'm telling you, this series' fate in the West was just, it was preordained. That it was not destined to do well.
No, not at all. An NES game releasing in the same year as a Super Nintendo classic.
Everything about it is messed up. Like, we looked at the box art last time, and we said like how they were going with the Conan art style. We've talked about how it's been years in passing, and now this one, there's a whole new console out by the time it's out.
Yeah, what a mess. What an absolute disaster.
And just a damn shame, because like this is arguably the best of those originals.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, and nobody cared. Yeah. Nobody cared. And if we look at the stats, we can see here, according to woodus.com, I don't know what that means. Whatever. In Japan, so if we look at Dragon Quest 1, according to this site, it's sold, and these are according to Famitsu. So they seem pretty legit, but who knows? Whatever. Famitsu says NES Dragon Quest 1 sold in Japan 1.5 million copies.
Dragon Quest 1?
1.
Okay.
Dragon Quest 2 sold 2.4 million copies.
Okay.
Dragon Quest 3 sold 3.8 million copies. So we're just seeing this series blow up big time. Whereas Dragon Warrior 1 in America was 500,000 copies, and we know a lot of that was likely the giveaway. Dragon Warrior 2 was 150,000 copies. That's quite a dip. And Dragon Warrior 3 was 95,000 copies, so it didn't even break 100.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
That makes sense though, because like, late in the life cycle games usually don't sell particularly well.
No. And not when, I mean, Super Nintendo is like getting into the heyday of RPGs. And you're getting some NES game.
Mm-hmm.
Not even close. No.
Mm.
Yeah, that's super unfortunate. I mean, that, like you said, that just ordains Dragon Quest to be like low tier, worthless in America.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And it's so crazy to see just such a stark contrast between the two. Like Japan and America. Dragon Quest is like the biggest thing ever. In America, people like within, probably even now, if I mention, maybe not now, but 5 years ago, if I mentioned Dragon Quest, they're like, what's that? I think now with 11 and some of the other stuff, it's a little more known, but man, Dragon Quest has always just been low tier in America.
Yep. The NES era really goes to show that for you. The NES, they're like, what's an RPG?
Let's talk about how it was received. I usually like to use Famitsu, but I don't see it on here. Yeah, and I only want to do Famitsu, here it is. And this is kind of weird, but it was reviewed by Famitsu at 30 out of 40.
Wow.
I don't know. I kind of put it higher than that. Maybe
especially considering 2 scored higher than 1. It was like a 37 or something.
Yeah. It's been a big year. Nintendo Power gave it 4 out of 5. In some of these, I don't know the year, so it could have been like another version. But IGN gave it a 10 out of 10 for what it's worth.
Okay.
EGM gave it a 7 out of 10. Again, I'm not sure exactly the versions on that, but according to Metacritic, it is a 71 out of 100. But that says, that's the Switch version. Yeah. I don't want to comment on that one. Reviews say a survey conducted by Famitsu in early 2006 among its readers placed Dragon Quest III as the third most favorite game of all time. Whoa. I don't know if I put it there.
Third most favorite game?
Yes, in early 2006.
Oh my goodness.
Being preceded only by Final Fantasy X, gross, and Final Fantasy VII. All right.
Okay.
It is. I love this line. It is often mistakenly thought that in 1988, the game's success caused the Japanese government to outlaw further releases of Dragon Quest games on school days. In truth, Enix themselves decided to hold off the release of future Dragon Quest games until weekends.
Mm-hmm.
I guess to make more money. I don't know. There must be a money benefit there, which is weird because in modern days, Tuesday is a typical release day. I don't know if that's in Japan, but in America, it's Tuesdays and Fridays if you're Nintendo and want to live by your own rules. The North American release of Dragon Quest III did not meet nearly as much success. Considered an improvement over the first 2 games, Dragon Quest III, quote, kept the same ugly graphical style and clumsy interface, end quote, explained Kurt Kalata of Gamasutra. The North American release's poor sales are partly due to the fact that the game was released after the release of 16-bit gaming systems, making it seem archaic to gamers. Critics found the new day-night system and the addition of an in-game bank praiseworthy. Its reputation has risen in America since its release, primarily due to the gameplay innovations, leading Nintendo Power to list it as number 176 on their top 200 games list.
Oh my goodness.
Okay.
Let me just say that in trying to play this game for this archive edition, I was just going through every single version I could get my hands on to dabble with. And at one point, I seriously considered playing the NES version. And so I dabbled with it for a little bit. And I could not believe how behind the times it was. You know how like Pokemon Gen 1 to Gen 2 made there's so many quality of life improvements?
Yeah.
You could say the same about anything post NES Dragon Quest. You had to go in the menus and you had to select, you in order to talk to someone, you normally just go up and you press A, you talk to them.
Right.
On the NES versions, you would have to go up, go to the menu, go to talk, and then talk to the person, and then end that way. And that was
Wow.
just an example of like ways that it was just like that much more I don't know, uh cumbersome in order to really experience. So I gave up on that real fast and I found a different way to play it.
When people talk about playing the oldest version of a game, I'm always just like, good luck, man. I want the quality of life improvements. Sorry. I'll take even other shortcomings just to get those because I do not deal with that. I don't play nice with NES mechanics.
Well, that's just going back so far. It's like, because this is 88 is the original and 92. We're
Yeah.
going on a 30-year game here. This
Yep.
game's older than I am.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. Um, it hurts to hear that one review by Mr. Kurt Collada, but he's probably not wrong. Same ugly
I mean, at the
graphical style.
time, yeah, the graphics are terrible on the NES. It looks like I don't know, they just look like little Microsoft Paint things without the outlines.
Yeah. The pixels are bold.
Yeah, they're bold, they're smudgy, they're square. It's bad. It's bad. Probably not until you get to like the battles is it decent, but yeah, it just hasn't aged particularly nicely today, and I'm sure even then, like it was noticeable.
It's crazy to see Famitsu listing it as third most favorite game of all time.
I think we can cycle back to that, like, as we kind of delve into the makings of this game, because there's certainly a lot here that we haven't quite touched on.
It's true. It's true. Well, you ready to jump in?
Let's go into the world of Dragon Quest.
All right, Dragon Quest III, also known as Dragon Quest III: The Seeds of Salvation, and that's for the remakes. Let's talk about the plot real quick. And I'm getting this off of DragonQuest.famdom.com. It's the Dragon Quest III wiki. Dragon Quest III is set many years before the original Dragon Quest in a world bearing great similarity to the real world. Oh. A wicked fiend, Beramos, threatens to destroy the world. The hero, son or daughter, you can choose to be either male or female. Wow, progressive. Of the legendary Ortega, recruits up to 3 traveling companions and sets out to defeat Beramos, only to find later. Okay, we'll talk about that later. Anyway, you're out to defeat Beramos. Pretty standard Dragon Quest, right?
No, because you get the female, and also, this one has a fun little cutscene in the beginning of the game where your father, Ortega, is fighting a dragon. And if you actually just let the credits roll for a second, or not the credits, the start menu, it gives you a whole intro cutscene that you wouldn't see if you started the game.
Wait, what? Did I miss?
Yeah. Yeah. So it gives you the story of Ortega going to the volcano to go fight Beramos.
Oh my god, I had no clue.
Just let the game play for a little bit. It doesn't matter what version you're playing, NES, SNES, Game Boy. It's going to show you that cool little cutscene. It's super cool.
That's awesome. I had no idea. That's freaking cool.
And so that's like a little extra plot. Otherwise, you would start off in the beginning knowing, oh, your father, you're going to go in the footsteps of your father. You talk to the king and he sets you off.
That's awesome. I'm going to go do that after we do this. I want to see that.
It's great. You should, yeah, do like a little comparison of all the versions. Maybe not all of them. We could leave that phone port alone for a bit. The iOS.
Yeah.
Yeah, I laughed at you saying that the game was based on the real world. You know what the connection is, right?
Yeah. The map.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. It's the world.
It's just like real life.
Hey, that's Africa.
Oh boy.
Yeah, maybe I'll stop there.
Okay, so the game's starting, but before we talk about the hero, we both played the Super Nintendo version.
Oh, yeah.
In the most legit of ways, of course. And we got something a little bit different than the original NES did. We got a little questionnaire.
Well, the Game Boy Color version also has this.
Right. This is
this is
a remake only feature. Were you blown away by this? Were you expecting this?
So let me say, I've played this game when I was like 8 years old or something really young, and I sucked at this game. And obviously, it's really hard to do this kind of old school RPG without a guide. And so I wasn't up on like Game Facts looking up guides. I was just playing it, trying to enjoy it. But I remember playing it at the time and being kind of blown away, standing on a mountain answering existential questions about my my life, like. And what would you do to to show respect to your families? Would you walk with them in grace, or would you, walk into the valleys of darkness? And it's like 8-year-old me is like, grace.
Whatever gets me to the
Obviously,
slimes.
yeah, exactly. Obviously, like doing it nowadays, like it kind of reminds me. I think this is like Pokemon Mystery Dungeon kind of steals this, like where you answer those questions before and like it affects who your character is. I don't think the effect is as strong as is in like those kind of games, but it is a cute little feature to like give you a bit more personalization over your character, but ultimately one that is like just kind of neglected over the course of the narrative, except for one moment where you tell the guy your birthday.
Mm. Can you elaborate on that?
It comes up later in the game, so I don't want to mention it too much. But
Okay, okay. Make
in the
sure.
second half of the game, there's a moment where your character's birthday is brought up. I will say that.
Okay, make sure you bring that up again because I vaguely recall that, and I don't remember what the payoff is.
Payoff. We'll get to it.
Okay, okay, cool. Let's talk about the hero here. Obviously, the hero is not necessarily like we can't give you here's what your hero. I mean, there's a general layout of what the hero looks like. He looks like that dude that's more traditional. He's got the cool hair, and I think he's even in Smash, the new Smash. I think he's a character there. So if you want to look at what he looks like, but you can be a boy or a girl, and technically, well, no, in this one he is just the hero. So it can be him or a girl that I guess looks similar to that.
Mm.
What do you think about that? Where instead in this game you don't get a hero that that is more personalized and is yeah. What do you think about that?
Well, I've never played as the female, interestingly enough, in this game. So I don't know. Like, and it's kind of weird because it's never just crossed my mind to pick her. Um, I honestly think of the caricature in Dragon Quest IV is a little bit more memorable for me. But what's really makes this character stand out is the connection to the father.
Mm,
And just the fact that you are the child of that father, who's that hero who went off and has, supposedly died in the fight with Beramos.
yeah, I I was kind of disappointed. Um, One because there's no, and not that there necessarily should be, but I'm just kind of confused when I see it. It's like I'm glad that they gave you the option to pick a female, but like in what way does that alter anything? Even the pixels look, I mean, almost you can't even tell. And we're playing the Super Nintendo version, so it's I mean I can't really tell the difference between a male and a female that well. Um, Not sure I really got the full benefit of it.
The and you know what? It honestly blends in a little bit with the warrior class and the sage class, which we could, I guess, we're kind of leading into it, but the
Mhm.
class system.
Yeah.
So the visual distinction is not that different than the other characters, but there is a technical distinction between the hero in this game and the hero in Dragon Quest II.
What's that?
In Dragon Quest II, your hero was nerfed because he didn't have magic power.
Oh, yes, yes. You're not pathetic.
Yeah, you're not gimped. You got balls. Magic balls. Actually, the game is full of balls because it's all the balls that you got to collect, like in the first game. You had to get the light ball or whatever,
Yeah.
the ball of light.
Yeah, yeah.
I don't know, there's something about the balls in Dragon Quest.
So we got some kind of focus there. That's
Something to do with magic and balls, but yeah, sorry. Go
Yeah,
ahead.
that's very true though. You are more akin to Dragon Quest One's hero, in that you're kind of a jack of all trades character. You have attack spells, you have healing spells, you got like leader spells. You've got I mean more advanced certainly because their spell catalog has multiplied.
Hmm.
It's a
Oh
lot
my
more
goodness.
complicated and complex.
Yeah.
And really what dictates, your character, and we'll get into this in a little bit, is really more just your personality. Dictates a lot of how you grow as a character as opposed to anything else.
Literally and figuratively.
Absolutely. Let me move on to classes, as you were kind of alluding to. This is the first. Now I don't want to say this. It's probably not true, but it probably is true. This is the first game with classes. I don't know that for a fact, but first video game, like console video game, because I know obviously PC they have classes on there, but console video game with classes. This might be it, or certainly it's one of the first. This is the first iteration for us, I'm sure, for Dragon Quest of classes. What did you think of it?
My gosh, man. You could spend hours at Ruida's Tavern just trying to create the best team. It is so personalizable, and as somebody who likes the intricacies of the competitive Pokemon scene, it's not something I've dabbled in a while. I love this. I could spend hours throughout the game making sure that my party is the best it possibly can be, and I just obsess over those little things, and I love it. I love it.
Oh,
How do you feel about it?
there's nothing like it. And that's one of my things with Etrian Odyssey that I talk to people about, that I don't think most people like it, and that's fine. It's not a requirement to have anything. But I love in Etrian Odyssey that you don't have to give a shit about this character's backstory and this character's relation with the world and do this. It's like, I want my character, Jebediah, to be a warrior, and I want him to kick ass. Like, that's kind of my thing. And I want him to grow so that he kicks more ass. And he's freaking awesome.
Yeah.
And I love that the game's like, level 1, who do you want? You want a guy that kicks ass? Here you go. You want a guy that casts healing spells? There you go. Do you want a chick that's burning people alive with fire? Here you go. You make it, and it's your journey. It's your people. And to that extent, it's so much better than Dragon Quest II, where you do have characters that matter, but also are just completely pointless.
Every single one of your characters in Dragon Quest II sucks.
Oh, yeah, you're totally right. I never even thought about that. The hero sucks. The side characters suck.
Yeah, your hero is like, all he can do is attack. And I'm talking about Dragon Quest II. Your, like, the Prince of Canic has some decent spells, but he's weak. The I forget what her title is. The female character,
Moonbrook, I think, or something.
Yeah, Moonbrook Princess. She has some healing spells, but she sucks. And so by the end of the game, you're fighting with only a party of 3 against like a giant evil Satan spawn, like that will decimate your team, as well as just like that final area in that game, and it's just cruel. In this game, you really do feel empowered.
Yeah, and think about all the games, including Final Fantasies, that at this point were just like, your character is, and all the other characters are the characters on the stat sheet.
And this is your character. Versus in this one, I think from the start you have the hero, and then you can pick 3 characters to take with you on your quest.
Mm-hmm.
And the classes include warrior, thief, fighter, cleric, mage, jester, and dealer. 7 classes. And you can, between those, you can pick male or female. And you get 5 free stat upgrades to upgrade any stat you want. The possibilities are endless.
Yeah, what a great way to start.
Like, I don't even care if the game's great. At this point, you gave me a party that is so customizable. And, like, we've talked about, like, the feeling of inclusion and, with your characters, and this kind of like, can you relate with them or whatever. It's not that any of them say a thing. You can't talk to them. There's no dialogue, but they are like your little minions. And like you were saying, if you want that warrior that kicks ass, you got it. If you want that thief that's going to steal items from characters, you got it. If you want like a just stupid jester character to make jokes the whole time and get worse as you go on in the game, you can have that. And that's a thing in and of itself, to be able to pick a clown of a character. I don't know any other game that does that.
Do you know that he does have a purpose?
Yeah, at level 20.
Okay. Just don't shit on the jester, all right?
Yeah, I know, but if you just keep him a jester, he's going to be Let's just say funny.
Yeah. No, you're totally right. You're totally right. It makes this game, even if you see flaws in it, which I guess there are, but it's, you know, this game lets you pick a party and just go into the world. Like how many games? I mean, Final Fantasy One technically did that. Um, wow, that kind of nullifies a lot of things. Anyway, that was Final Fantasy One's deal. But still, this is Dragon Quest, and I like that it hadn't done that before, and it's this thing that it grew into, and does it with such, and we'll get into it when we get to the Abbey, but when we talk about all trades, but it does it with so much style,
Yeah.
and yeah, we'll get way more into it with the Abbey, but
The other thing about this is, yes, Final Fantasy, but Final Fantasy prides itself on its, fantastical elements. Dragon Warriors always felt a bit more close to home, and even the silly inclusions like a map or, of the world or whatever, I guess it's not really like that effective at creating this kind of like realistic portrayal, but the real humanization of those type of characters and even the sense of them feeling like really medieval, it just sticks true to its identity as a Dragon Quest style game.
absolutely. Well, Dragon Quest 2 had come out in the December. Dragon Quest 2 came out the December of the year this came out. I can't remember exactly what date this came out. Maybe it lists it here. 1998. Come on, where are you? Come on.
Come
Well,
on, mate.
come on, man. Well, I can't find it exactly. I'm sure it's somewhere, but I could just Google it, I'm sure. But I wonder if Dragon Quest 3 was made in response to Final Fantasy 1. It's just like, whoa, they got classes. We got to get classes. Because Dragon Quest 2 came out probably after, or sorry, Final Fantasy 2 came out probably after Dragon Quest 3. So obviously 1 came out first. So yeah, I wonder if they kind of look back and forth and was like, hey, we got to add that. That's pretty cool. Certainly better than 2's system.
If you can even call it that.
Okay, so you go out into the world, you do these little quests. This one has a key system that's also permanent, kind of like the other, but you get a key pretty much right away in this game, which is
Yeah,
cool.
you need it.
Yeah, which is pretty cool to kind of go back and forth to that quickly.
Yeah.
And the world opens up fairly quickly, and we're going to talk a lot about the world. In fact, we should just probably get into that. It's hard to say exactly where to start because I don't like going through the story. I think that's kind of boring and doesn't really serve anybody. But I do want to talk about a really early standout, which to me, and you feel free to throw in a standout as well. But I'll pick one first, and it would be the king of, I can't remember the town, but there's a king in a town who hates his job so much that he asks people to be the king in his stead.
Yeah.
This is the first of many moments where I'm playing this game and I'm like, I have never seen anything like this in any other game. And this is like from the NES.
That's beautiful. It's definitely it's jarring when you're doing it too if you're not like using a walkthrough because it's early in the game and you don't really need the walkthrough by that point. So you're trying to find the right next move to do, and then you just like recovered like the cane or whatever it is for the king, and he's like, "Wow, that's so great. Do you want to be king?" And so you get the crown, and then he's off gambling.
Isn't he betting on monster fights?
Right, which is one of the new little gambling things you can do. And he's just over there hanging out, betting on fights. He's like, I lost again for the 30th time. And everyone's just kind of cheering him on, but it's like his father's up in the top of the castle saying, "Oh man, that guy's bringing shame to our damn kingdom. I got to smack some sense into him."
Oh my God.
It's lovely.
Yeah, and you're just like the king, and I know this one says that, like, this website saying king for a day, which is a good, funny little thing. Yeah, he just kind of hands it to you. He's like, here, you do it. Bye. And you're just like, what? And they just like walk around. I guess I'm the king now. But you can't do shit. Like, there's nothing you can do about it. But I mean, and think about all the effort that must have gone into coding that. I just think about that. like way back in the day, like somebody had to code this thing where you're suddenly the king and your mission kind of stops, and there's no like payoff per se to it. Like it doesn't turn into anything. It's just, hey, this king doesn't like to be king, and you can be king for a day. And I respect the hell out of that. Like they had no reason to build that, but it's such a great world builder that you get to see that. I don't know. I'm surprised.
This took that concept that was like somewhat explored in Dragon Quest II, but never fully realized. I never felt like there was a town that was so standout. Like you remember in Dragon Quest II, where it's like you come on like one of these territories that's like in the southeastern part of the map, and you sleep at the inn, and then supposedly you inhaled the darkness, and one of your team members goes down, and then you have to go get a leaf, and you come back and you revive him.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it's just so like. It's just such a poor example of attempt at like storytelling through the town, but you could tell they were trying.
Yeah. The effort was there.
And so this is a more realized version of that. There are so many memorable areas and towns to explore, especially once you get the ship and once you can start exploring that way.
Yeah.
Because the world really just opens up. That happened in Dragon Quest 2 as well. Like the world opens up, but things are just so cryptic in that game. In this one, every area serves a purpose. And one of the areas that you can go once you get the ship is this little island. It's like kind of mystical. There's like these two sage princesses like worshiping like an altar, and they say you have to go get the 6 orbs, and the 6 orbs are going to bring justice back here or light back here or whatever, and then you can hatch the phoenix Ramia. And I remember in Dragon Quest 2, you remember how you got some of those like key orb items?
Yeah. And they like showed up in like a weird part of the menu or something. I can't remember.
It was just a random patch of grass behind a tree.
Yeah, yeah. Like there's no story or anything that goes into it. It's there.
Versus in this one, what are some of the orbs that you remember?
Oh, I have a specific note to talk about one of them. The first one I remember was awesome. It was seeing the pirates.
Yeah.
Is landing near those pirates and being like, oh yeah, we buried treasure. Like there's a cool little story about buried treasure, and you push the rock out of the way and there it is. That was like, oh, and that kind of reminded me of that one you just mentioned where it was like it's near a tree. But God, if you just put a little effort, put a little story into it, like these pirates had it and it's buried treasure, and you go over there and you find it. You just got to do something like that, and then suddenly it's genius.
And what's especially genius about this is that throughout the game, although a guide is necessary for parts of it, like there are just some parts that I would not recommend you do without a guide. A lot of this you can do just based on the game's internal gossip system. Just by gossiping with characters in the world, you can find out little tricks of the trade, like, oh, the pirates, I hear they have buried treasure in one part of the map. And so you want to talk to every single NPC. When you go to that pirate area, if you go there during the day, did you go there during both times of day and night?
I don't recall caring about the daytime. So no, I don't think specifically for that one. No.
If you went there during the day, there is nobody there. If you went there at night, the entire place is populated with pirates, and they're all like, lollygagging about, and like, there's like a captain of the pirates says like, "Are you really going to fight Beramos?" And if you say yes, she says, "I respect you," and so I'm going to tell you the secret. And so there are so many cool things, like little things like that. There's another town that is drastically different between day and night. Do you know what it is?
I don't know the name of it, but it's the Cursed Town, right?
Oh, well, the Cursed Town, definitely. That is definitely one that is drastically different between day and night, because that also entails one of the orbs that you have to get, and that one was like I wouldn't have figured that out on my own.
No.
But the other one, I think the town is called Isis. It's like the area towards the desert.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. And did you get
the puff puff?
A little puff action over there?
No, I took some advice and I stayed away.
Do you want to know what happens?
Sure. I don't know what happens. You have to tell me.
You get offered a puff, and you say yes, and she takes you up into a room, and then the lights turn off.
Yeah.
And then when the lights turn back on, it's one of those big muscle guys. And then you just feel weird. Like that's what
Oh.
the thing is.
It's a classic catfish.
Oh my god! I remember when I first did that, I was like, "All right, I'm getting a puff puff," and then we did that, and then I was like, "I cannot believe that made it into like a kid's game." I
So
know
funny.
Japan has a different view of things. I'm shocked that it would come to America like that, and
You know, that happened to me when I was a kid because I played this when I was a kid and I must have got the puff puff. So maybe I'm just reliving my trauma somehow.
and a little side note, they completely duplicate that in Dragon Quest 11. At a
Yeah,
certain
you're
point.
telling me.
So
I'll
definitely
be
check it
looking
out.
forward to it.
If you want to get, if you want to feel weird in HD, that's how you'll do it.
Excellent. Another cool thing
Yeah.
about that town is they overprice everything.
Yeah.
And so once you start saying no, because you obviously can't afford it,
Mhm.
they'll barter down prices and they'll go as low as to say that you're robbing them. And like you actually get some good deals on some of the items there. But it just adds like that much more personality to the town.
Well, how many games now have a barter system? Like that's so
Oblivion.
genius.
But it's just so that one's like, okay, you can like move on the left or right on the scale. But I don't know.
Yeah,
It is genius.
yeah, yeah. It's in this game was in the NES era. Like,
Mhm.
and I'll probably keep reiterating this game is in the NES era because some of the things are so forward thinking. It just blows my mind that they would have. It seems like they wanted to try a lot of things and actually succeeded in most of them,
Yeah.
which is kind of impressive. I do want to talk about. We were talking about the 6 orbs. Let's talk about some of the weirder quests in this game, and the one big standout to me
Is
of
the dealer quest.
the dealer quest.
Yes.
I have never in any RPG I've ever played come up with a quest like the dealer quest. This is
Use the damn walkthrough. That or just listen to us because we're gonna give you the rundown.
yeah. There's a town, and it would be over by Russia, I guess, or over on the very very far east.
Japan.
Japan. Yeah. It would be Japan. And it's just a weird patch of land in between some trees. And you go there and they're like, we need to build this, but we don't know how. What are you going to do? To solve this weird problem, which it doesn't, I mean, maybe it tells you like in the gossip somewhere, but you have to put a dealer or a merchant, whatever you call him, into your party and then travel over there. Doesn't matter what level he is. And then he goes, hey, I'm going to take off. I'm going to help this town. And then he leaves your party. Like it ends. You go back there later. It becomes the town of whatever his name was. Like I named mine Bart because I was watching The Simpsons, I think, at the time. And it became like Bartsville or something like that. It was like Bartville or something, right? Like Ville, I think they put at the end. And you constantly go back as you do your quests, and the town builds up and blossoms into probably one of the bigger towns in the game. And it's got life and it's got all these people, but you notice it could end right there and already be the craziest story, like one of the weirder quirks in gaming. But it goes an entire step further and becomes a story about how the merchant then becomes corrupted and greedy and takes advantage of the people and makes them work long hours and takes all the money for himself.
Yeah.
And this guy, he could have been your party member. Like, he totally wasn't, because I'm not going to put a dealer in my party. But he could have been your party member. And he turned into this monster to the point that the villagers try to, and successfully, upheave him and throw him in jail. And so the jail that he built, he ends up in and needs you to help bail him out. And you do. And he learns this crazy lesson about not, respecting people. What a beyond the, like, there's nothing like that in any game, and it's like a complete story. It blows me away that this made it into an NES game.
Mm-hmm. There's a whole political narrative there that I think was just limited by the console possibilities, because my entire experience with this was an experience in frustration. For starters, there is no gossip about
Okay. I'm not
a
crazy.
merchant. Like, take yourself a dealer to the guy and maybe that's what he needs. You do, like, if you go to this like little Indian village like to the west, I forget what the place is called, Seoul or something, totally worthless town, but they tell you, yeah, there was a guy who settled in the area to the east. Did you see a town? And then you can answer yes or no, and they're like, well, I guess he made it, but you don't know that it's there. And so, like, I eventually found it, but then it's not clear, like, 'cause it's not a town. It's just a guy in like a patch of grass.
Yeah.
And he's like, I hope to build a town here someday. So like somehow you're supposed to make the connection that you have to go back to Ruida's tavern, which you probably haven't done since the beginning of the game.
No, you probably forgot it existed. I didn't even think about it.
And so there's that. Then you bring your merchant back. You let her stay or him stay. I picked her because it's actually it looks like Anna, who is the dealer in later Dragon Quest games, and so like there's
Oh,
some nostalgia there.
yeah.
And so like you come back at different queues because there's like 4 stages at which you have to come back to this town.
Right.
And so like you the third stage is when the town really blossoms, but you have to have had like 4 or 5 of the orbs by this point. And then at the final one, when they overthrow the merchant, you have to have gone in the town, talk to the people who are going to overthrow the person, go outside, leave the town, save the game, turn off the game, turn the game back on, and then go back into the town. You can't just stay at an inn. You can't just rest overnight. Maybe it's just the version I was playing, but I went in and out of this town like at least 5 to 10 times, not knowing why the story was not progressing. It was the last orb I needed. I got all 5 of the other ones. And so I was just so frustrated at the point. I was like, I don't know if the game is going to finish. But we played the same version, so I knew there was a way.
Yeah. It is so cryptic, and like you said, there are parts of this game you flat out need a guide. It's just not really doable without it. I mean, it is, but it's not. Like, it's as a gamer in 2021, it's just not really gonna happen unless you got a guide.
The other 5 orbs were fine. I had no problem with the pirate orb. I had no problem with Orochi orb. I had no problem with well, okay, so the one in the town that you have to stay overnight, that one got me. But this one, forget it. No. You can't do it.
I had to use it for another one. And I don't know the town's name. We're gonna not remember a lot of towns' names. Just deal with it. You'll understand. But there was one, and this was also a really weird quest where you had to use this potion to become invisible, and then
Yeah, and then you have to go into the castle.
Yeah,
And then go down and like push some boulders around.
and I didn't even realize the guy you talked to was like in the same area that was like, hey, you should use this potion to go invisible. I totally didn't even get to that. Like, I didn't see it.
Yeah.
But that was genius, and then I love that. There's like a weird, almost stealth aspect to a part of the game. They just tried everything. They just tried to literally like, what can we possibly do? And they just said, let's do all of them.
Yeah.
And there you go. Did you have any
Another
other? Yeah.
one, this is the only other one, is the one where you have to go inside that like cave in the center of the island, and like you use the key, and there's a whole back part of the town. And like if you played Dragon Quest 1 and 2, you know to explore the outskirts of every single town because there might be some area behind it.
Yeah.
This game pushes that to like a whole new extreme because there's like a town with a whole castle behind it that you wouldn't even know exists. There's another one that's like it's in Antarctica in the map, and you go there and it's like this area, it seems like there's nothing there, but you have to follow a very specific trajectory, and there's an old man in a hut in the back who says, I wish to see the cane one day. Like, that transforms people.
Yeah. Oh my god, I missed that so many times. Just trying to get, because there's a couple people that point you there, and they're like, yeah, just keep going northwest, you'll find it. And I'm like, well, I did it. I went like literally up right, didn't find it. Or sorry, northeast or whatever, can't remember. But yeah, that was a trip. That whole thing is I admire the drive.
Yeah.
Even if maybe, and especially we played the Super Nintendo, I can't fathom some of these on the NES. But we even with the shortcomings that some of these had, just like the drive to be different and creative and like offer weird solutions to the problems in this game are so impressive.
They really put a lot of like onus on, like, I don't know, just being explorative, like wanting to explore the characters and the worlds. Like that town that was being plagued by the dragon Orochi, and like they had to sacrifice somebody every year. First off, I love the music in that town.
Yeah.
It's called G Pang, and it's really good. Especially on the Super Nintendo version. But like you go in the cave, you destroy Orochi, and then you end up in the town again, and then the queen is hurt, and then like but it's not clear that you fixed everything. That was super cool. There's another one, like you go in the cave and you can only send the hero, and you can't use magic in the cave, so it's literally like a whole quest.
Yeah,
you're really on a quest with your characters, like to the end, and it's just such a personalized experience, and I think it's beautiful.
Absolutely. I don't know if you remember, but when we were talking about Dragon Quest II, we looked at the Shmuplation's interview, and he mentioned that he wanted to make some of these quests sad. Do you remember him saying that he wanted to make the ending really depressing because like the king or the main character is going to get killed by the sister of one of the dudes?
He wanted it to be like a tragedy, you
Yeah.
know, like in the sense that there was like some humanity to it, and they just never quite hit that like balance into. But I remember.
Yeah. Well, I found that interesting because that horrible ending would have been so dumb and so
Yeah.
so out of place and so horrible. This game had some legitimately tragic moments in it, and I was taken aback at how much they evolved in their storytelling and their ability to tell this like through almost limited dialogue and limited they don't have the music or the graphics or the moving whatever to get these interesting little stories across. And I'm thinking of two in particular, and I'll just mention them and ask you what you think of them. It's the dwarf, or no, sorry, the man and the female elf, who would commit suicide because they weren't allowed to be together.
Yeah. Oh, that's another one I needed the walkthrough for. I had no idea what the hell was happening. No, not there. There was another part where you had to like sail and use a thing because there was like a song in the ocean or something.
And that's the other tragic one
That's
is you found, there was a woman who threw herself off a tower because her loved one had passed away.
Yeah.
And she just needed something to remember him by. And you go and find the sunken ship and you find that piece, and then that's limitations at their max, is just trying to get that thing to go through. But man, what tragic stories those are. I'm just so moved that they would include those in there.
What's the most tragic is you can't do anything about them. Like you can go to the grave and you can go put their souls at ease, but then the elf queen won't even like. There's nothing you can do in that town. There's like a little merchant in that little elven town. You can't even talk to them. They're like, we don't deal with humans, even after you've like put the lady's daughter to rest.
Yeah.
Oh, and the town that freezes over into stone. That's so beautiful. Like you go in there and like the music is literally slowed down.
Yeah.
Everything's quiet. Everyone's frozen in place. It's like a picture that you can walk through. Is
that the one where they're asleep?
Yeah, I think it's the village of Knoll or something. Like,
yeah, and they're all put to sleep just endlessly.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, wow. Like, you just see the tragedy and that's what a tragedy is. Like, that's what a lot of people don't realize in gaming today, is that a tragedy is where it ends poorly. It's not where something's sad and then you fix it. Like it's, you are seeing the repercussions of some of these actions. And that's what it is. You move along with your quest. I mean, you wake them up, but it doesn't necessarily make anything better.
They don't even know that you saved them.
No.
One guy is like, "Why is my back hurt?" But there are some even cool moments in there. There's a lady upstairs in the house that says, "Yeah, it was just yesterday I saw Ortega."
Right. Yeah, and you follow his quest. I mean, and even that. I mean, we could talk about that. That is part of the tragedy of the whole thing, is you're on a quest to find your dad, and when you find him, you do find him, and then he's dead.
Oh my goodness. That one, I wanted that to hit me harder than it did. It didn't really hit me. We could talk about that, but do you want to get there first?
Yeah. That's
okay.
That's a little further down the road, but my God, I didn't even think about that being part of it, because it didn't hit me necessarily either. But This game
Yeah,
has
but
some.
that is true that like throughout the story there are all those little footnotes to Ortega.
Yeah, all
So
for,
that's a great connection.
all for nothing. Well,
Yeah.
maybe not nothing, but so you get all these things together, and then you get Ramia, which is or Ramia, or however you want to pronounce it, which is a legendary bird, which we'll actually see in later Dragon Quests, which is nice to see. And this bird lets you fly around town, which is awesome. You get to visit even more places that you couldn't reach with the ship, and
Which is a cave
which is yeah.
and a castle.
um, well, and
I do like about it though that there are no random encounters. So it actually lets you just kind of freely traverse the world map.
and is that mode 7? No, it's not quite mode 7, right? Where you're flying around.
Because that's on the SNES. They're talking about mode 7. So maybe in the SNES version they had that upgrade. I don't know. Like I noticed you could scale up and down,
Yeah.
but in the NES I doubt that that was a possibility. They probably just had a bird up here and then
Oh yeah. NES, and again, another reason to, if you can play Super Nintendo version in legit ways.
I really want to talk about that, but we'll save that because that's a tangent.
Okay. But yeah, you can visit there, and you can visit that one little place in between the mountains to get the orb of light, and that's kind of it. But I guess it's faster than the boat, and there's no random encounters. So not that you really need it at that point, but it's still, I guess, nice to have. Really cool bird. Did it change anything for you? Like, were you able to? I mean, did it open the world up, or did you just kind of like, oh, I'm going straight to the next location anyway?
The only thing I needed to do is I needed to grind by that point and make sure I had the best equipment possible. And so when I got the bird, the only part of the map I hadn't explored was that like one castle town you need to go to fight Beramos.
Gotcha. Well, speaking of grinding, that's a great transition because we've passed over one of the major points of this game, and I want to make sure we cover it. The All Trades Abbey. Let's talk about this because we talked about classes earlier. What about changing classes mid-game?
Yeah, I love going in All Trades Abbey no, it's called the Dharma.
Oh, Dharma. Oh my God. They're going to kill me for that. It is the Dharma. Yeah, I'm used to calling
First off, I love the connection that, like, I guess it would be in Asia, like in kind of like Mongolia, Russia kind of area in the world map there, or maybe it's America. I don't know. What do I know? But I love that it's called Dharma after kind of like Buddhist principle of like understanding suffering and struggle, and in the sense that you suffer because your character returns to level 1.
Yep.
But
over.
You get the added benefit of you will maintain all skills that your character has learned if they're like a mage or something.
Yeah.
And all stats will be cut in half, which if they started at level 1, they were probably shit to begin with. So having them at half is actually not a bad deal.
No, it encourages you to do it, which is cool. And I probably should have done it for one of my characters, but I didn't. But and you did, so good for you.
I did that later in the game, though, and way later, like by the time I was at the end. When I first got here and I had managed to get around level 20 for all my characters, I picked 2 and I switched them. I made my mage a sage, and I made my fighter a warrior.
Yeah, and I did that too.
It was weird picking which one to make a sage because they learned a bunch of spells anyway. So to make a mage a sage was actually not that necessary. If I could have done this over, I wouldn't have even picked a mage.
To begin with?
Yes, because the HP on my sage was terrible. He'd always be the first one to go. He had a wicked MP stat and like a lot of good spells, but it would have been more beneficial to have like... Honestly, I want to try the game with a dealer or with a thief and pick one. The thief is not that beneficial, but
when I see a character like the thief in one of these games, I assume it's going to be way too technical for me to use. Like you got to put him to sleep and then you can hit like backstab. I don't know that for a fact that's how it works, but God, I don't
Yeah,
like dealing with that shit.
like the poison dagger and the assassin dagger, but they just don't have that many skills aside from like being able to steal items from enemies every so often, and like that just kind of happens naturally. And they're really agile, and you can go undetected. So if you're trying to avoid random battles for a while, there's no like repels or anything, so you can't just avoid monsters.
Yeah.
So the thief is beneficial on that end. The dealer, I thought, like, only after I played the game did I learn this. You could like set up tent with the dealer as you're on the world map, so you could get items as you need them,
Oh, that's cool.
and like stay at an inn. You could call the deal like the inn to come to you.
That's legit.
And so I underestimated the dealer class.
Well, after seeing Bart, I wasn't gonna hire any dealer. It's so corrupt.
Yeah.
In the you mentioned the sage. That one's unique because you can only upgrade it with that book, or if you got a jester to level 20.
Yeah.
But you had to get the jester to level 20, which actually, I mean, late game, probably pretty doable.
Yeah.
Early game,
sure. You could just recruit a jester and do that, but the sage is really not going to save you that much by the end.
No, I didn't actually find the sage to be in later versions of the game. The sage is like top tier, like huge deal. Like in 7, I remember like a sage is about as good as you can get. I didn't really feel that in this one, although I like the expanded move list. The stats themselves were pretty low.
You're better off having a cleric with like Kazing, like the full revive ability.
Yeah.
That was a really helpful spell to have.
And with that, it's worth talking about the personalities. So when you tie into these different classes, you're actually supposed to match their personality to get the most out of it, which adds quite a wrinkle to the leveling up progression system that you were trying to achieve, which again pushes this way beyond like what Final Fantasy did. And this isn't a shot at Final Fantasy. That was the first attempt, and they're all growing right now. But this makes it so much more complicated and interesting. And you find these books along the way that you can change your personalities and adjust. And
where do you find those books too?
In the bookshelves.
Right. So like I love that about this game is that like, not only do you want to talk with everyone, you want to interact with everything, because there's these bookshelves with books that change your personalities to get maybe special books to help you to grow your class. Like, to become a sage, you need a Zen book. So you'd have to look on the bookshelves. But then like with the personality max like stats, it completely alters like, depending on if you pick a smart book, you're going to have a smart character for like a mage or a sage or a cleric. And that's perfect because you don't need strength for them. But like there's other ones where it's maybe a luck stat or something. And sometimes even if you just like look in a mirror, it screws you up. Like it'll change your personality to vain. Or if you put like on bunny ears, suddenly you're a lucky character who has sucky attack. And it's like, oh shit, like every little thing counts.
Yeah. But there's how you raise your, okay. So if you mentioned that you were like a Pokemon guy.
This is Pokemon before Pokemon, like the advanced Pokemons before them.
Yeah. I mean, this would be equivalent to probably the what do you call it, mating thing, where you get an egg or children thing.
They didn't do this in Pokemon until Gen 3, where you had natures, and so your personality would be the equivalent of a nature. And surprisingly, there are like as many in this as there are then, which is like 15, 20 years later.
Wow, that's good to know. Because that's what people that play. One of the reasons, and this again, you mentioned we should tie into that 2006 article making it number 3 of favorite games of all time. There is a group of people very dedicated to this game that like to min-max to the umpteenth degree. Yeah. And what they do is they get a character, they give him a certain, they like a warrior or something. They give him the strength stat, or they give him the agility stat. Whatever stat they want him to be good at, they give him the book that gives him the most of that stat. Mm-hmm. Raise him as high as they can get him. Class change him to the next character that they want him to be. Give that character the new book, and make sure that stat goes all the way up. Because every time it gets halved, but sometimes it can get halved from already incredibly high heights. And that's how they make the perfect party. Those people have a lot of time on their hands, and they're not me. But that is why the battle system and the party system is so complex in this game that it's beyond probably most Dragon Quests, honestly, in terms of complexity.
I'll tell you what, though, if you take that hour or two to do that, you're going to save yourself 2 to 3 hours of grinding.
Yeah. If you take the hour to do like one or two, maybe.
Yeah, I mean, but it's really just an awesome system to invest yourself in. Those of you playing this game for the first time or second time, whatever, I highly encourage you to just look at the personality, guys. I would like go back and like confirm these are all the books I have in my inventory right now. It's not that I was going hunting books, like I'm not like a book fiend, or whatever. I do read books, but I'm not that into this. But I would just say like I have like a smart book, a brave book, and a Zen book, and this is my character. This is what their stats are. Which one is going to give me the net positive rate for what I need it to, for like vitality and for strength? And then I would pick that, and then I would use that for a while until I got more books. And I would just, it's not that I would sink hours into it, but like I would be aware of it as I was playing, and it did lead me to have a really good team.
Yeah, this definitely is the way to go. And there's a really great guide. It's dragonquest.org wiki. They have a personality types thing in here, and they tell you which books to use to get the result you want. I mean, you got an Amazon here. Its strength is at 130%.
Yeah.
Looks like Bat Out of Hell is the good one for getting your agility up. It's 100% for everything except for agility. It's 140% growth. So that's just representing how your stats grow.
Some of those books will be in the negative percentile, though, and some of them will just be at a flat.
Absolutely. There's one called Mule, and it makes you stubborn. And it's negative 90% stat growth.
Yeah. If you're not aware of it at all, of the stat changes, it could make this game a very hard time for you.
Absolutely. Ironically, Wimp, which makes you cowardly, is only negative 10% stat bonus. You'd think something like that would be a real game changer, but doesn't seem so bad. But it also affects how fast you learn abilities, which matters to the characters that learn abilities. So that's an important one. I think that's the wisdom stat. Helps you learn things faster. So
I think everything has a preordained level based on what character you are. If you're a sage or something. There's a guide for that, like when you will get certain skills.
I thought that the higher intelligence made you learn them faster. Are you sure? Sure?
That wasn't in my experience. No, because I purposely got my cleric to level 37 because it would get revive at that level.
Maybe that's the case and I misread. Yeah, that could easily be the case. And maybe I just misread the stat.
List of spells in Dragon Quest 3. Frizz, Hero level 2, Mage level 1, Sage level 1. There's a whole list of these, and it tells you the level you get it at.
Gotcha. Okay, scratch that one. Ignore that. But yeah, the personalities are super, super important. So don't neglect them if you're playing them. Definitely.
Yeah, even if you don't have to go crazy on it, but like, trust me, like once you start looking at it, you're gonna look at your books that you have that you've collected and go like, which one can I put on my hero? And it is kind of fun. So.
Yeah, and it kind of I mean, it doesn't really, but it's kind of fun to know that your character's like a jerk or an Amazon or a wimp.
Yeah,
because there's not really much else characterization. Let's talk about Beramos. You stumble upon it once you get Ramia, and it's one of the few places left you can go that you haven't visited before.
You're not able to visit it without Ramia because it's surrounded by mountains and you can't overcome them.
So you fly in there, and it's really just like kind of a castle, a weird castle because it seems to be broken up into different parts. And then, of course, you fight Beramos there. I remember you texted me about this place. What's your thoughts on Beramos and his big old castle?
Okay, so I actually kind of liked this castle, although it was a little confusing. Not too bad though. I remember some parts in like 2 and 1 being really confusing.
Yeah.
This game isn't particularly confusing with the dungeons or like the towers. I think they're all mostly straightforward. Although I do like some of the traps in some of the earlier ones, like in the pyramid, like you can fall to the bottom floor and you can't use magic, so you want to get the hell out of there. Um, in this one, there's like a couple staircases and it's kind of like visually interesting to see, and you have to go like in through the castle around the side. You can't go through the front door, you got to go through the back. um and then you end up in some courtyards, and then like you go through this section, and there's like a throne, and sitting on the throne after you like cross all the hazardous terrain to get there is a skeleton of what you would imagine is the previous king. The only reason I was getting confused about where to go here is because you go south of that into this, you can't even tell it's a door.
Yeah.
It's just like a little black area to get to the next part.
Yeah.
To get to like the basement to fight Beramos or whatever it is, the ceiling. So I just didn't know where I was going. But the monsters are a little higher level here, higher than you may have been used to, and Beramos is a beast. He's pretty strong by this point in the game. Your character's probably around level 25 or so, and he's just got some strong like full party attacks that are going to do some serious damage to you.
I think the only reason I got through this part without a guide was because I remembered doing it a long time ago and remembered specifically that door. That literally like one character wide hole in the wall that like looks completely inconspicuous. And I don't even think should look like that. I think that must be like an oversight or something, because there's no reason to hide that. It's like a main entrance. I do not understand why that's there. But yeah, fighting Beramos was, I beat him the first try, but the big caveat on there is basically a full party wipe. The only person left was my warrior. And I think she was at like within 14 HP or something like the next turn it was going to be over. And so she just carried the rest of my body's back home.
I love that about Dragon Quest boss battles. Like that happened to me at the final boss in 2. So, I can totally relate with that.
It's just like, well, if push comes to shove, this guy's just going to keep attacking you and probably win. So that was awesome. And it's great that the game just ended right there. And that was it. Beramos was defeated and everyone cheered for you, and hooray, you won. Just kidding. Beramos is just a pawn from a guy named Zoma. And you have to go into the dark world, which is also something that kind of just opened up, to find him. And actually, I think you're still finding your dad, right? Like he's you haven't found him yet, right?
So he supposedly, like, I don't know, supposedly he's not here anymore because nobody's heard from him since he had fought Beramos in this area, like, of the map, this cave, this castle, this volcanic area. In this part of the map, they say like that there's a hole that goes to the other side of the world, and there's like some guards defending it, so you can't go down there until until Zoma has returned after you've defeated Beramos and says, "Ah ha ha, you're not done. I'm going to terrorize the world." And so he opens a hole in the middle of the earth, and but the king of the castle town that you're in the beginning of the game doesn't want anybody to know. So he's like, "We have to cover this up. You can't tell anybody. I need you to go like covert ops and go take down Zoma. Nobody can know." So if you go at any other town in the core map of the game, they think that you saved the world.
Well, phenomenal. Like just
so good.
Just great, like little nods to everything. This game is just so great. And it's about to get better because you go through the dark world and you pop up in this weird cave and you claw your way out. It's quite difficult. And you're like, wait a minute. Why do I know this place? Like you kind of walk around, you're like, it's shaped in a way. Like I remember a place being here somehow, and you walk and you're in Alefgard.
Yeah, and you don't recognize it at first, or you don't have the ability to, because you can't use the map when you're there.
Yeah.
And you've had the map since the beginning of the game, so you've come to rely on it as like a form of like, just knowing where you're going, even when you're on the bird or if you're on the boat, just to kind of get a general sense of your bearings. You can't use it here, so it's like, how big is this world? You get to use a ship, but like the monsters are stronger. There's these giant jellyfish in the water, or I forget what they are exactly, or it's the squids, like those like squid kids, but like the daddy versions.
Yeah.
And so a lot, like, if you go sail in the water, a lot of scary creatures. You know what happens when you sail to the edges?
No, what happens?
The water caves off. It's a flat world.
Oh, flat Earth
There are
confirmed.
waterfalls like flat Earth. Yep, Dragon Quest 3. It's the origins of the conspiracy theory. But yeah, it's like a little tapestry of Alefgard, of the world in Dragon Quest 1 and 2.
Wow. I could just see people being blown away at this back in the day. I mean, I certainly was to an extent. But back then, I mean, a plot twist like that, I'm thinking about the games that were coming out at the time. It's like Mario 2 or 3 or whatever it's going to be at that time, and even like Zelda, like the first Zelda, like what Donkey Kongs and stuff is coming out. I don't even think Donkey Kong. No, that one didn't even come out yet. Like Track and Field, a game like that would be coming out, and then Dragon Quest 3 wraps up a 3 RPG trilogy by traveling back in time to the first game and letting you be the hero that saved it. It's like there's very different playing fields that these people are on.
Yeah.
And it's hard to even, like, I love that I get to experience this weird plot and this excellent twist. I can only imagine what it would have been like to experience it back then. I'd love to hear somebody tell me about that, because there's nothing like it at the time.
Yeah. Unfortunately, there's only 125,000 people that, or 90,000 people that, in America to tell the tale of having bought the game, let alone gotten that far. I couldn't imagine very many people in the States getting to this point in the game.
No, it's probably like 5,000 of those.
Yeah, probably.
Well, I wonder if some of them are just like, oh, Dragon Quest, that sounds pretty neat. Oh, this is terrible. I'll never do this again.
Yeah. I mean, there's probably a lot of Conan fans out there. Yeah, and you know what? I just love all the throwbacks when you get there. It's not really obvious at first. Like, you go to these towns, and like, I was just trying to parse together like what was going on. I understood this was a prequel or whatever. But like, there's that town in the first game where there's like a golem outside and you have to fight it before you go into the town.
Yeah.
There was no rhyme or reason for that. You go into that town and you talk to one of the guys, and he's like, I'm working on this project for this golem that can defend the town. And so there's a bunch of little nods like that spruce throughout this version of Alefgard.
Did you talk to the guy that was like, I think we want to build a key, and it opens.
Yeah.
If we can get
Why don't you
keys,
show me that key so we can mass produce it?
Yeah, so you're the reason that there are keys in Dragon Quest 1. Mm-hmm. Like, little touches like that are so, like, God, you're just like, they were just thinking of everything.
Yeah.
They were building the cave between the two towns, or between the two continents. They were busy building that. Like, we hope to have this done soon.
Yeah.
It's just, they just wanted to do everything. And it makes you wonder, okay, so this game has 2 maps, 2 pretty huge populated maps. Maybe the first one's a lot more huge and populated, but still, 2 maps. Dragon Quest 2, I mean, they're both the NES. Like, in terms of volume of anything you can possibly think of, isn't even close to this game. It makes you wonder, like, even in modern gaming, like, are they really pushing these things to the max, like to what they can achieve? Because Dragon Quest 3 feels like they've pushed the NES to basically all it can handle. I wonder what Dragon Quest 4 was like, but that's how I feel when I play Dragon Quest 3.
Dragon Quest 3 was like a game and a half. You know, like they had the one pack that had like the Dragon Quest 1, Dragon Quest 2. Those feel like both separate individual distinct games. And Dragon Quest 2 honestly felt like pretty decent, but Dragon Quest 2 felt like only the overworld map in Dragon Quest 3.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like not even the depth of the towns. I mean, even the towns in Dragon Quest 3 have so much character, so much excellent music, so much story, so much depth. Even if you don't go technically with it, the
And do you
stories that they
remember in
told.
Dragon Quest 2, there were no boss battles until the end.
Yeah, absolutely. There's
And so
nothing.
this one is just so much more like it's everywhere. Like there's story. There's like hidden story. You know, there's like the thief Kandar who you fight a couple times, and you know he's like begs you for his life afterwards. You know,
Yeah.
there's the, this
Remember,
game just does so much better on all those fronts, and it's shocking. I didn't expect that
we
because I,
talked
I
about.
enjoyed Dragon Quest 2 for what it was, and I stood up for it a little bit.
Yeah.
But you know, objectively, this is better on all fronts.
We talked about Dragon Quest 2 had that one scene where it's like in a town and like my daughter's being attacked by a demon. And
Yeah,
she's like 10 paces away in this weird cutout that might be a house. I'm not sure. But it's just like
right.
a weird cutout and she's being attacked. If you compare that to like any quest from Dragon Quest 3 or coming to town and solving a problem, it feels like it's from a different era of
Hmm.
gaming. It's the Dragon Quest 3 dwarfs 2, and it's I feel like it's kind of redundant to say 1, but of course it dwarfs 1 and in just about in literally every way. Like it's not
Mm.
you can't even really argue it, and I think most people have come to terms with that is that 3 is just like the pinnacle of the original trilogy. And it's hard to go back. It'd be very difficult to go back, but
You have to do it in that original order, one, two, three, because you can't appreciate. Well, first off, you can't fully appreciate three without having experienced the quirks, oddities, mechanics, and all of that of one. How would you know to make any special thing out of the golem in front of the town in one? You wouldn't. You know, how would you know to make anything special of your name, like as a character in the line of Loto or in the Erdrick line, you know,
yeah.
of the legendary hero. They referenced that once in like Dragon Quest 1 or so. Like they mentioned, "Oh, you're the legendary hero." But that doesn't mean anything. How would you know to make special, you know, meaning out of the armor that your main character is wearing in this game or in Dragon Quest 1?
Yeah.
Other than the fact that they like reverse engineer a lot of that into Dragon Quest 3.
Yeah. You almost think you could skip 2 in the long run. I don't recommend it, but if you're short on time, you could play 1 and then be like, and then 2 happened. And then 3. You can start at 3.
Yeah.
Um
Yeah.
but there's obviously value in 2 as well. But
Yeah.
so you enjoy this world a little bit. I mean, you're actually there quite a while because of the difficulty in monsters, so there's a bit of a farming gap here. And you follow sort of a familiar pattern, getting the Staff of Rain, the Rainbow Drop eventually to create the bridge, yada yada. But a familiar trope that happens that connects again 3 to 1, and you end up back at the old castle where it all began. Well, I guess where the first one ended, and we're fighting the true enemy, which is Zoma. But first, you got to get through that hell of a castle.
Oh yeah.
Um, did you find? I mean, this is a pretty deep castle with. I mean, you could farm in there and just get quite a few levels every time. Did you? What did you think about this end castle?
This was not nearly as this is my only gripe with Dragon Quest 3 is that I didn't feel that same sense of like big, deep, intimidating, challenging cave.
Hmm.
Honestly, the first game had that over the other two games.
Okay, I agree.
Y- And so like this one was kind of a breeze, like to kind of find your way through. There was like a couple trap like staircases, you know, in the Immediately when you go in, it's like you think, oh, maybe go down the stairs, and no, it wasn't. You actually just have to go around them. And then there's another one with some interesting floor panels, and it messes with your directional input. So if you press up, you'll actually go left, and then there's pits, so you'll like fall onto the bottom floor. Those were kind of cool, but I never had problems with them.
Yeah.
Once you figure out the trick, it's just kind of intuitive. The thing was, the grind was real. Having to get to the appropriate level for Zoma was intense. And especially considering your, classes that you had and just everything in tandem. And 2, you don't have a choice. You have your party and you're just going to grind and get them as high as possible. And 3, you really begin to wonder, did I make the right party? Is there things I can do to improve them? You also need to keep in mind, are my equipments all up to speed? Do I have, did I buy with all the funds available to me things that I could, selling the items, etc. And so by now, it's really just like you are really reflective of the entire party in a way that you weren't in the first 2 games. In the first game, you were like level 22 before you could defeat the Dragon Lord.
Yeah.
In 2, you just grinded the hell out of your way to get there. In 3, it's more of like just being hyper aware of the party. You know what I mean?
Yeah. 3. I mean, 3, and that's a credit to the fact that it's a big stat grind. But three stats matter, and picking the right stats matter because, and you have to actually pick them. Whereas in 2, I mean, every character this character could use this item, and it's not like you're going to pick anything crazy because the prince sucks and he can use these set items. And the princess of Moonbrook, whatever her name was she had set items, and there was no real thought necessarily to itemization. You give her the best dress, you give him the best armor, you give yourself the thing that hits the hardest, and that's about where that ends. In this one, you have a wide variety. I mean, you could have a fighter. He doesn't use the same items as the warrior. You itemize those 2 differently, even though they are kind of, in a way, the same character. The itemization is different. You have characters. You have a sage versus a mage versus a cleric. At a certain point, you could have a combination like that. So how do you itemize that? How do you itemize your other character? How do you itemize your hero? I mean, you might want to focus more on his spell power since you got that a warrior or a fighter that can do all the physical damage. Mm-hmm. Those kinds of things change how you approach it, which was completely. I mean, one, there's like 5 items anyway. There's no choices there. So this game, and when you do go through that gauntlet, you start thinking about that. Like, whoa, I got wiped out. What could I have done differently? Like, is my armor right? Like, what is going on here? And so, yeah, you're totally right that the stats play a much bigger role in Dragon Quest III than the other ones, especially in the end game here.
But those leading monster units are not nearly as challenging as they were, especially in Dragon Quest II. Dragon Quest II just had monster difficulty, like, I don't want to say perfect, but to that level of like real high challenge. Dragon Quest I had that level of like exploration difficulty, like, really finding your way through caves and castles. That had that really good. This one has boss battles that are, I don't want to say completely unmatched to your surrounding enemies, but that really require you to invest in grinding. In addition to also having the best possible party. And so that was a real challenge.
Yeah. Let's talk about some of the bosses. Mainly I want to talk about the big dragon and then Zoma. And the big dragon, of course, kills your dad in front of you. This is the big moment. You've been searching for him the whole time. Even people here in Alfgard have mentioned they've seen him. And of course, he's in the last dungeon. You find him, and he gets his own like battle cutscene, which is pretty bizarre. It's one of those. I appreciate that they did it. I'll say that. It looks a little corny. It's not incredible, but it's amazing that they attempted it, and I'm so impressed by it. And then he's dead.
You told me earlier to remind you of the moment where your birthday comes up.
Oh, okay. Yeah, hit me with it.
So after this, this three-headed dragon, gets done dueling your father, and you watch the whole battle go out, and he tries to catch. This is crazy. So he tries to cast like mid heal a couple times, and he keeps attacking him. I was half expecting to be able to join the battle and like fight alongside him,
Yeah.
which would have been so cool, fight alongside your dad. But that's not the direction they took, which is fine. I understand it. He's casting mid heal, and then going on attacking the dragon. He tries to cast mid heal again, but he doesn't have any magic power left.
Yes.
And so then he just goes on, tries to keep attacking it after realizing he didn't have enough magic power. And then he just keeps getting attacked and attacked and attacked. And then you see your father just like collapse after this whole game of searching for him. And when you go into dialogue with him afterwards, he says, "Oh, can you hear me? Just please fulfill my last request. Let my son know, find the child who was born on this date and tell him that his father loves him." And it's like, oh my God, there's that moment from the beginning of the game when you inputted your commands about what kind of character you are, and, when your birthday is, and like, what's your astrological sign, and, that they came full circle. And even though it didn't do it in a way that hit me in the same way that future Dragon Quests will, 4, 5, 7, 8, 11, 6 maybe. I don't have to play it.
Probably not. Probably not.
I respect this one for trying.
It is, well, and it's kind of weird. Like, it's cool that they did that, but in thinking about it, it's kind of weird. Like, you go into a town, it's like, was anybody born on January 8th of 1923? I
was born in the Great Depression.
But interesting moment. Again, it's tragedy. Like, you think that it's going to be like, you find your dad and you're like, hey, everybody's happy, we're alive. And then you hold his hand and run off into the sunset. Doesn't happen. He's dead. So just kind of end. I mean, not the ends, but that's it. Like, he's dead.
Yeah, that was the saga. You found Ortega only to watch him get murdered ruthlessly. It was almost kind of like, well, I mean, yes, it was tragic, but it was like, is this a joke?
Yeah.
That's kind of what I was thinking at that point.
It's almost like a Freddy got fingered situation or something, where it's just like they put this thing in front of you and just kill it. Like, like a story would normally, especially at the time, would be like, oh, you become, you save him and you guys are friends now, and he's like, go on to fight Zoma, I'll be backing you up. And nope, just dead.
Yeah.
Well, speaking of that, you do end up fighting Zoma, and you go through a gauntlet of Beramos and then a couple other bosses. And this is the final skill check, man. How was it?
First time I fought him, I got my ass whooped. So, I was confused at first. So, footnote, I completely forgot that you got an item called the Ball of Light and that you were supposed to use it on Zoma.
Yeah.
So the first couple times I tried fighting with him, I just tried fighting and I was doing normal damage, but when he would, like, you go into the battle with him, he's like this big hulking priest-like figure, evil-looking priest. And in the Super Nintendo version, you would watch the animation and his jaw would drop and his eyes would bulge. He looked like some kind of zombie or something. And he released this blue flame. And it would do like 200 damage.
Oh, shit.
Or like 100 damage. And, my party's HP was at that time, like, maybe I had some characters with 300. Oh, gosh, I was getting crushed. And so I was like, dang, I really got to grind. And so, I would put some music on or podcast on, and I would go grind and, fight some metal slimes and get some XP. But then I just realized, like, oh, I can use the Ball of Light on him. So I did. I used the Ball of Light. He says, wow, you found my weakness. You dispelled my shields. And that's when the real battle begins. Only nothing's different except a color palette change. So all the damage you do is the same. All the damage he does is the same. There are no differences as far as I could tell.
There weren't any differences stat-wise?
No, nothing. No differences. But I made a executive decision to change my cleric into a warrior. after getting my cleric to level 37 because I wanted the revive spell. All my other characters had Vivify, which has a 50% chance of working, versus Revive works all the time. And also, my cleric was getting wiped out because the HP was like 200 at level 37, which was just not enough. And
I
so I
remember
spent
that.
like a good 2 hours grinding, maybe, and I got her up to 36 as a warrior, and she ended up being a beast. And I had like 3 characters with like 400 HP,
Oof.
and the battle was, I wouldn't say it was a cinch, but it was like I had it in the bag.
Yeah. That would help a lot.
You
Okay.
oh you get another item too. I forget what it's called. It's like a little bell. You can ring it infinitely, and it restores like 100 HP to all your characters. So I was using that with on my sage.
Gotcha. Gotcha. Um, yeah, he does something that a lot of the people do in most Dragon Quest now, which is constantly cast that move that undoes any stat bonuses.
Right.
Oh, I get
And
it.
sap didn't work either. You couldn't lower his defense.
Yeah, and that we've talked about that before. That's just kind of annoying.
Yeah.
Um, but he was a beast, and it puts you in that constant state of, well, my people need to be using buy kill. That was buy kill in our
Yeah,
version.
it's normally oomph, but in
Oomph.
this in our version it was by kill.
It's like use rotations of oomph, and I think if you do some of that, it forces him to use that one that negates spells. I think he's
Sometimes he
smart
would
enough.
just use it stupidly though, like you didn't have any increases and he would use it.
Ah, okay, okay. Because part of me was like, I guess I'll just use it to make sure that he keeps using it, but maybe it wouldn't have mattered anyway. Um, but yeah, you're constantly kind of fighting with the stats in that way. It's like a tug of war, which is funny.
Yeah.
Um, and then he does some pretty nasty AOE's. But yeah, he once you get a high enough level and you got some HP behind you, you can sort of keep up as long as you keep the healing up. But yeah, I love these end boss fights and all these Dragon Quests. They're freaking slaughterfest.
This was the first one that was not a two-parter
Yeah.
as well. All the other ones had a priest and then a monster. This was just him as the priest, but it was like the priest combined with the monster.
Yeah, and I guess in a way it's similar because this one had the multiple. Um,
Oh yeah, it was like a
it's,
boss rush kind of thing.
yeah, like a weird boss rush, which it's like you could have put these throughout the game and it might have been better. But I guess I appreciate that they want to make the end really hard. Um,
Hmm.
but they were kind of forgettable. Really, we're just here for Zoma.
Hmm.
But eventually you do beat him. Let me read this epilogue real quick. Upon defeating Zoma, you may begin to make your retreat from the castle when the ground starts to shake, the floors crack open, and you fall into the ground below. Ironically, you are ejected from the fissure found in the lowest level of the North Cave, where you found the Shield of Heroes. You will make your way out of there, and as you round this corner of the staircase to the hallway, that extra hallway will crumble and collapse, leaving the dungeon in the same state it will be found in the original game. As you exit from the cave, it will seem as though the hole back to your original world closed up. In fact, you attempted to cast return. If you attempted to cast return or use a wing of wyvern, you'll find that your choices are limited to the 5 towns of Alifgard. Make your way back to Castle Tantagel for congratulations from the king and a victory celebrations from the citizens nearby, when the credits will roll until a final message appears on the screen. To be continued in Dragon Warrior.
Hmm.
A dragon orb
Hmm.
will flash on the screen, cycling through the 6 colors of the orbs you have to collect. Congratulations. There you go. There's the end of Dragon Quest 3.
Woohoo!
I love that whole ending thing where you're just like running through. It's so like late 80s, early 90s epic movie.
Yeah, yeah, like the patch of ground right before, like right behind you falls, but you're okay.
Yeah.
So like there's like this kind of action escape sequence, and it's like, am I gonna be okay? Am I running fast enough? You know, you can only run so fast because you're a sprite on an RPG, but like you still want to get to the end, and just in case.
Well, we did it, Teddy.
Yeah, Spence. Three. The Erdrick trilogy, the legacy of Loto.
Having fully completed the Erdrick trilogy, the Lodo trilogy, whatever you want to call it, how does it hold up and what's its place in the Dragon Quest saga?
Two very good questions. Uh, the trilogy as a whole holds up very well in the sense that there's not too many old school RPGs that tell such a similar story like it. And I'm willing to branch out and like compare it to non JRPGs. Like let's just say Zelda, right? Like if you're going to compare it to Zelda, Zelda 2 and Link to the Past. What's the connection between those three games? I don't know. They're all different. One's like a top down, the other's a side scroller, then there's another top down. Zelda 2 is the black sheep, so you got the second one being the black sheep. Okay. Final Fantasy 1, 2, and 3. Well, we didn't even get Final Fantasy 2 or 3. Dragon Quest 1, 2, and 3 are also vastly different and technologically different from one another. And 3 is just the culmination of all of that being as perfected as I think it could have been by that time.
Mm-hmm.
Be it 88 or 92 or whatever in between. And so I think it's really special in that regard. I know you could look at like Phantasy Star and maybe make some arguments there. I don't really know so much about Phantasy Star. But to me, Dragon Warrior 1, 2, and 3 are the classics, the founders, and they have their own merits. And each one is special in different regards. I kind of alluded to it throughout the podcast, but I love 1 for its sense of exploration and embarking on the journey as the lone hero. And 2, I love that sense of exploring the world as subdued kind of heroes and feeling kind of humbled in your experience. In 3, it's like you are the party. You and the party are on a quest together, and sometimes you go through changes, and sometimes you change your classes, and sometimes you need to make drastic decisions to change everything. But the experience is going to be memorable, and you're going to walk out all the more rewarded for it. And although none of them are perfect in any of those regards, I think they all tell a great tale that is well connected by the end.
Wow. I don't think I could say it better.
Plus, they've got a bitchin' soundtrack.
Hell yeah. Yeah, no, it was very fun to go back and play Dragon Quest 1 through 3. I'm happy we got to do it together. What a blast. It's interesting to see its place, because when I first did it, I hadn't beaten the other ones. I started 1, got all the way to 3, but at that time I hadn't actually beaten 4, 5, 6, probably 7, probably 8, actually any of them. So those were the first 3 I've truly beaten at the time. And I don't know that I fully saw like the evolution. I mean, clearly you can see the evolution from 1 to 3, but when you start making the connections back to 4, 5, even 7, you still see some of those tenuous connections, especially the 3. It's like, man, they were thinking about all this basically before I was born, as how long ago they were already thinking about these things that I think of now. And I'm like, oh, that was cool in 7, how you altered your class and there's all these branching paths for the classes and stuff. They were thinking about this all the way back in 1988. They're just trying to get all this mastered. So it's fun to think of that. And it makes you wonder, too, how far back they thought of some of these that made it just to 3. Like maybe 1, they were thinking, like, man, what if you could change classes? And what if you could So, and think about Ultima and all those games. They probably did think about some of that stuff and saying, well, it's too hard right now. But maybe we'll try next year when we release Dragon Quest 2. As far as, unfortunately, and it still holds true to me, but if I were to recommend Dragon Quest to people, I still don't think I would ever recommend 1 through 3. I don't know what your thoughts are on that, but I would definitely say like 8. I mean, I would say 11 is, God, the most easy to get, but 8 is great. I have a warm spot for 4 that I just, I can't help but recommend that to people. But the
unfortunate truth about Dragon Quest 1 through 3 is that all of the future games, with possibly the exception of 9 and maybe 6 to some people, are better standalone titles than any of these as standalone titles. What I would recommend, though, is 1 through 3. I wouldn't recommend any of them as a standalone experience.
Yeah.
If you were just going to play one of the Dragon Quest games, I would not pick from 1 through 3. if you're going to explore the roots of the RPG as a series and even as a genre, I would totally recommend 1 through 3. And it's really special. You asked the question, what is its place in the Dragon Quest, series as a whole or brand? You said it before, it's technically the only trilogy. The
Really, yeah.
Zenithian trilogy is a trilogy, but they're all very loosely connected and they're all their own thing. And it's hard to say that 6 is the culmination of anything 4 and 5. Those are arguably like, their own masterpieces.
Yeah.
One's evolution to 3 is really a sight to behold. And even though, like, I know we said like you could skip over 2, it is good to play 2 and then see just what is accomplished between 1, 2, and 3.
Oh, absolutely. 1 through 3 is the journey. Each of the other ones are standalone great, but 1 through 3 is like a historical, like botanical garden walk through through game design and through learning something that, I mean, you wouldn't compare it to any modern game or anything. I mean, Dragon Quest 3 in some ways you could say is better than modern gaming in certain ways, but yeah, in general, it has to be the 3 together. I don't see any other way I would ever recommend these games to anybody, especially like Call of Duty people. Forget it.
No,
it's not gonna happen. There's no way they'd play 2, specifically 2. Well, that's the legacy of Dragon Quest 3 and the Erdrick trilogy. Are there any other parting messages you want to talk about with Dragon Quest 3?
The small medals, they were great.
What's the point? Oh, you do
tiny
actually
medals?
You do actually like at the very beginning are able to trade. I did not know that until like the very end.
I love that. Oh, well, you know what? I think I played when I played the Game Boy Color version years ago. They also had monster medals, and when you would defeat a certain monster a certain number of times, you would get the medal for that monster. And so there's a certain collectible fun to it. And also with the tiny medals, they're in these like places, like a lot of them you would expect it's like you press on a gravestone, or like, you look in a pot, or it's like if there's like an odd formation on the ground. And so just like discovering them, like there is kind of that thrill to like, oh yeah, like there's a tiny medal, and you get some good weapons out of them. I got like a flamerang for one of my characters, a flaming boomerang. So like, I don't that was cool.
They're like the Metroid missile canisters.
Yeah.
They just pop up where you least expect them.
Ultimately, though, completely unnecessary. Unlike in Metroid, where you need as many missiles as possible.
Yeah. Well, that's all I got, man. It's been a pleasure to have you on here, and I can't wait for whatever we decide to do next. And we literally, like, I'm not trying to hide it from the audience. We legit do not know what we're going to do next.
Yeah, so. It's up in the air. It could be anything. So, but this was great, Spencer. I was happy to partake, and definitely looking forward to more Dragon Quest to come.
We can consider Dragon Quest 3 archive.
Archive.
Thanks for watching, everybody. Take it easy.